Welcome to Rabid Beaver Farm and Reptile Garden in Mudville, California, otherwise known as Sacramento, formerly known as Sacramento. Anyway, Constance made that sign. I don't know if you can see it very well, but she put it up on the fence in our backyard, where I'm speaking to you from this morning. And I thought, I don't know for sure whether or not my Wi-Fi reaches out here to the backyard, but I guess it does. And so I thought it's a beautiful day, or at least it's a beautiful morning. It'll probably be close to 105 this afternoon. But it's relatively nice here in the backyard. We've got there's our bird bath. Let's see there. Can you see that? Yeah. And Constance has some flowers growing there. But anyway, it's just pleasant, and I'm testing out my my technology and trying to give you a different backdrop than what we're used to. This morning, we live right next door to a Lutheran church, right, just right across our little narrow alley there, and they're having a festival today of some kind, a crafts festival, and Constance has put on her mask and has gone over there to see if she can get some pot holders. Sounds pretty damn domestic, doesn't it? So let's talk about psychedelics and drugs. I don't know why. It was just a quick thing for us to talk about, because in this day and age we've got all sorts of wonderful exotic things that you take and get instant samadhi and 15 minutes in Brahmaloka and things like that, and ayahuasca and wonderful mind-expanding things. But when I was young, we had to do it the hard way. We had to take LSD and stuff. But anyway, back in 1966, I just moved back to California from Nebraska, and as a young musician, I had been approached by a young surfer type in the restroom of a saloon that I was playing my guitar at in Belmont Shore. And he said, "Would you like to buy some LSD?" Oh, I hope that's not going to happen. And I said, "Well, I sure would." And goodbye, dear. Do you want to say hello? You want to clip-clop out here and say hello? Here she comes. Have you been to the Lutherans yet?
I was just going to check out the game.
Okay.
Oh, you did that?
Yes. That's gonna be very helpful. So we've got, I guess.
Just started.
Yes.
Good morning. We're breathing now because it's going to be, we'll have to breathe through our eyelids for the next 8 hours. It's going to be so hot.
Yes, we'll be breathing through our eyelids. But anyway, I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to read from a little quick chapter in My Life of the Spirits, because I don't think the machine gun next door is going to let me do much more. I encourage my brother Mark to join me on my next trip. about 10 days later, and we found that we communicated very well while we were under the influence. In the weeks that followed, we read everything we could get our hands on about LSD and the psychedelic phenomenon. Remember this, 1966. Almost every article compared the experience to the ecstatic visions of Eastern mystics and primitive shamans. I haunted the Eastern philosophy section of my college library and indiscriminately skimmed through anything I thought might show me where to start my holy quest. Mark began investigating yoga and the various yoga institutions in Southern California. We put ourselves on an experimental vegetarian diet and started, quote, practicing the physical exercises from Swami Vishnu Devananda, illustrated book of Hatha Yoga. It's really still a really good book, the complete illustrated book of yoga. We weren't bad. Both of us were surprisingly limber, could sit in a full lotus for what we considered quite a long time. I could even stand on my head in a full lotus position and demanded someone, quick, take my picture. The picture's in here someplace. There's. That's kind of a pitiful full lotus, but that's as good I could get while I was screaming, quick, take my picture. Oh, that sweatshirt and those shorts. A few months later when Constance came out and we got married, that's what I wore for our wedding. So, that's Lon's wedding suit. Okay. At first, we thought we could mix our psychedelics and yoga. Like idiots, we registered for an all-day Christmas meditation at Paramahansa Yogananda's Self-Realization Fellowship Temple. There was one in Fullerton, a beautiful, beautiful place. And about, I guess, 4 years later, Constance and I were attending services at the SRF church there in Fullerton, and she fainted in church, and we knew she was pregnant. I had to take her out into the garden of the temple, and we sat on a bench and to get some air, and she says, "I'm pregnant." But anyway, in order to make sure we'd get the maximum spiritual impact from the day, Mark baked the most extraordinary loaf of marijuana banana bread. It was the first time we ever tried this recipe. And in the footnote, I give the recipe if you'd like me to share it. As I recall, he soaked an entire, what we called a lid of cleaned grass. We soaked it in tequila. When the tequila evaporated, he then blended the paste with a pound of melted butter. After allowing it to harden, he then used the loaded butter in a standard banana bread recipe. Okay. So it was the first time we ever tried this recipe, so we were unsure how it would affect us. It was very tasty. So delicious, in fact, that we couldn't believe that it could be potent. Just minutes prior to entering the temple for that all-day Christmas meditation, we sat in the car and gorged ourselves on the whole loaf. We were warmly welcomed by a serene-looking monk who ushered us to the meditation room. In the east was a small altar displaying portraits of the line of SRF gurus. A year or so later, these same gurus would flank the face of Aleister Crowley on the album cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Facing the altar were 5 or 6 rows of straight-backed wooden chairs with padded seats. A neatly folded blanket hung over the back of each chair. "Do we have to sit in these chairs?" I asked with affected humility. "We would prefer to sit on the floor in our asana." The monk looked at us incredulously. "My friends, this is an 8-hour meditation. I'm sure you'll be more comfortable seated in the chairs for that amount of time." "We'll be the judge of that," my brother Mark replied with patronizing giggle. We couldn't understand why the monks didn't believe we preferred to meditate on the floor with our legs locked in a full lotus, like real yogis. "What kind of yogis are these?" Mark thought. By now the banana bread was taking effect, and I could read his mind. "Yeah," I mentally answered. "He must think we're some kind of white guys." The monk showed us where we could sit on the floor and informed us there would be a break in 2.5 hours, in case we wanted to move to chairs at that time. "We'll be fine," I assured him. Within a few minutes, the little chapel was filled with neatly dressed devotees. None of them elected to join the 2 real yogis on the floor. The monk said a few words about Christmas being a very spiritual season and quoted a little from the writings of Yogananda. Then we all chanted a few of the order's cosmic chants and settled in for the first 2.5-hour period of silent meditation. Mark and I immediately realized it was a big mistake to have eaten all of the banana bread. We were painfully high. We turned to one another and looked helplessly at each other's bulging yellow eyes and mentally screamed, "We gotta get out of here." Nevertheless, we closed our eyes and tried to be troopers. Our legs soon fell asleep, and without the distraction of pain, so did I. I guess I was snoring pretty loudly when Mark jabbed me in the ribs with his elbow. The monk opened one eye and silently glowered at us. It was absolutely amazing. We could read his mind, too. We squirmed and dozed through the longest 2.5 hours of our lives and quietly slithered to the car during the first break. We would not return to finish the meditation. For the next few months, psychedelic experiments would remain the centerpiece of our spiritual exploration. The dramatic events of our day at Joshua Tree would be the culmination of this period. Anyway, that's my cautionary tale about the DuQuette Brothers slapstick comedy team attending an 8-hour Christmas meditation for 2.5 hours. Anyway, well, I hope the signal stayed on and that you at least made it through here, and that perhaps some some other time I can do this or some other events out here in the garden. So that's it for Saturday morning cartoons. I hope you'll join me tomorrow for Sunday school. And until then, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.